Some children are not content to see the world as it is. They ask, they wonder, they doubt, and through an endless fire of curiosity, they rewrite the story of humanity itself. Charles Darwin, from a boy obsessed with collecting beetles and stones, to the man who peeled back the veil of life, and forever changed how we understand ourselves. This is the story of a mind that refused to accept easy answers. A heart that dared to walk where no one had walked before. Part 1. A Curious Boy with No Limits. On February 12, 1809, in the quiet town of Shrewsbury, England, a newborn cried out. His name was Charles Darwin. He wasn't the brightest student in the classroom, nor the obedient son teachers loved to praise. Instead, he preferred the fields, the rivers, the woods. He roamed, he collected, pocketing stones, fossils, and dead insects as treasures from a hidden world. His father, a successful doctor, shook his head in disappointment. You care for nothing but shooting dogs and rat catching. You'll disgrace yourself. But Charles didn't care. Something deeper burned inside him. A hunger to know why the world was the way it was. Why do birds have wings? Why do flowers bloom? Why is life so endlessly, wondrously complex? At 16, Darwin was pushed into studying medicine, following the family tradition. But the bloody surgeries and the cries of patients horrified him. He abandoned medicine, drifting reluctantly toward theology at Cambridge. A path he accepted, but never loved. Yet fate, disguised as lectures and field trips, opened new doors. Professors who loved the natural world. Afternoons spent in wild meadows and along rocky cliffs. Ignited a passion no career could contain. Darwin dreamed of decoding the silent language of nature. At 22, a letter arrived, an invitation to join the HMS Beagle. A 5-year voyage to explore the world. A single journey. A once-in-a-lifetime chance to see the Earth with his own eyes. Little did Darwin know, this journey wouldn't just change his life. It would shake the very foundations of human belief. Part 2. The Voyage That Shook the World. When Charles Darwin first set foot aboard the HMS Beagle, he was not a scientist. Not a revolutionary. Not yet the man who would reshape human thought. He was simply a young naturalist. Wide-eyed. Carrying little more than notebooks, curiosity, and wonder. The Beagle cut across oceans and continents. From the coasts of South America, to the volcanic shores of the Galapagos Islands, to the coral reefs of the Pacific, and the vast landscapes of Australia. Everywhere Darwin went, he saw something others overlooked. Patterns. Patterns in the beaks of finches from island to island. Patterns in the shells of tortoises. Patterns in the layers of ancient rock. Each one whispering a secret about a world older and stranger than he had ever imagined. He sketched. He collected. He wrote feverishly, filling journal after journal with observations and questions. Why did creatures differ slightly from island to island? Why did fossils of ancient animals resemble living ones, yet not perfectly? What invisible hand had shaped them? Slowly, an idea, radical, dangerous, beautiful, began to take root. Perhaps life was not fixed and immutable. Perhaps species were not created separately, but had changed, adapted, over immense spans of time. It was a terrifying thought. A thought that dared to challenge the very core of religious teaching. A thought that, if true, would mean that humanity itself was not set apart, but was part of the grand, unfolding story of nature. Darwin did not rush to announce his idea. He knew its weight. He knew it would provoke fury, fear, denial. For years after his return to England, he worked in silence, patiently gathering mountains of evidence. Fossils, breeding experiments, comparative anatomy, embryology. He refined his theory with the precision of a master craftsman. He feared the consequences, for his career, for his family, for the very society in which he lived. But he also knew that truth, once glimpsed, could not be unseen. The voyage of the Beagle had awakened a new way of seeing the world. A vision too powerful, too profound to be locked away in a drawer. Charles Darwin was about to set into motion a revolution. Not with a sword, not with an army, but with a single book. And an idea that would change everything. Part 3. On the Origin of Species, the book that shattered the silence. For 20 years, Charles Darwin worked in the quiet shadows of Down House, refining, doubting, revising, building the strongest case the world had ever seen. He was not rushing to fame. He was preparing for battle. A battle of ideas, against centuries of belief, against the fear of the unknown. By 1859, he could wait no longer. Other naturalists were beginning to circle around similar ideas. And Darwin knew, if he did not speak now, the world might hear his revelation from another voice. So he gathered his courage. He collected his notes. And he wrote a book. Not a dry scientific tome for scholars, but a living, breathing argument, woven with evidence, crafted with care, meant to ignite the imagination as much as the intellect. He called it, On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. The idea at its heart was breathtaking. That all life on Earth, from the tiniest moss to the mightiest elephant, was connected, born from common ancestors, shaped by an invisible hand not of divine design, but of nature itself. Natural selection. It explained the patterns he had seen on the Beagle, the fossils, the variations, the endless, stunning diversity of life. It was a theory at once elegant and terrifying. When the book was published, it hit Victorian England like a thunderclap. Some praised it, some wept, many raged. Darwin had dared to suggest that humanity was not the crown of creation, but one branch among many on the tree of life. To some, it was liberation, proof that life was more wondrous, more dynamic, more interconnected than ever imagined. To others, it was heresy, an attack on faith, on tradition, on the very meaning of existence. Darwin faced scorn, mockery, and vilification, but he also found allies, scientists, thinkers, and quiet souls who recognized the beauty in his vision. He did not relish the controversy. He was a man of gentle spirit, a man who loved his family, his garden, and his pigeons, but he bore the weight of his ideas with quiet dignity, knowing that truth, once set free, could not be caged again. In a single book, Charles Darwin shattered the silence that had hung over the question of life's origins for millennia. He replaced myth with mechanism, mystery with awe, and opened a doorway into the deep, unfolding story of life itself. Part 4. Darwin's Lasting Legacy, How One Idea Changed the World. Charles Darwin lived to see his ideas take root. Though not without pain, he witnessed fierce debates that split churches, shook universities, and challenged the very pillars of society. He endured the quiet cruelty of friends who turned away, the biting words of critics who saw him not as a man seeking truth, but as a heretic tearing down sacred walls. Yet through it all, Darwin remained steadfast, not combative, not arrogant, but patient, trusting that evidence, reason, and time would speak louder than fear. As the decades passed, the seeds he planted grew. Scientists tested his theory, challenged it, refined it, expanded it, and each discovery, from the unraveling of DNA to the mapping of the tree of life, only made Darwin's vision more profound. He had not merely proposed a scientific theory. He had offered humanity a new lens through which to see itself. No longer separate from nature, but deeply woven into its fabric. No longer static beings, but part of an endless, ever-changing dance of adaptation and survival. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection reshaped biology, medicine, psychology, anthropology, every field that seeks to understand life and its endless forms. But more than that, it reshaped our sense of belonging. He showed us that we are not strangers in the world, but its children, born from it, shaped by it, connected to every leaf, every feather, every heartbeat that ever lived. When Charles Darwin died in 1882, he was laid to rest in Westminster Abbey, beside kings and poets, not because he conquered with sword or crown, but because he conquered with an idea that would live far beyond the frail frame that first carried it. Today, whenever we marvel at the beauty of life's tapestry, whenever we see unity in diversity, whenever we ask how and why life changes, we walk the path Charles Darwin lit for us, a path born from a boy's endless curiosity, from a man's quiet courage, and from the daring hope that truth, once seen, could forever change the world. Closing statement. A light that still guides us. In a world that often demands certainty, Charles Darwin taught us the courage to embrace uncertainty, to look into the unknown, not with fear, but with wonder. He showed us that even the smallest question, asked by a curious mind, can ripple outward to change the destiny of humanity. Darwin's journey was not just across oceans and continents. It was across the landscape of human thought itself. He reminded us that knowledge is not a fortress to be defended, but a frontier to be explored. That truth is not something we inherit fully formed, but something we must chase, question, test, and dare to understand. And above all, he left us with a legacy greater than any theory: the belief that curiosity, quiet, relentless, and brave, can transform the world. If Charles Darwin's story has sparked your curiosity, if it has reminded you that asking why is the first step toward greatness, then don't let the journey stop here. Subscribe to our channel, turn on the notification bell, and share this video with fellow dreamers and seekers. Because somewhere, in every question, in every moment of wonder, the spirit of Darwin still lives on.